I'd like to call to order the April 29th, 2019 meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Linda, can we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer? Here. Ms. Simoresti?
Here.
Ms. Coleman? Ms. Gowan? Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Here.
Mr. Roslevich? Mr. Whiten?
Be it resolved, pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10-4-12 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss HIB reports and discipline. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10-4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion to recess to executive session?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to reconvene to public session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Pledge of allegiance. Behind Mark.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Linda, any other communications other than what's on the agenda?
There was one that came through over the break, but I'm going to report on it at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Number 8, we have, these are new corrections to the minutes. From the March 25th, 2019 meeting, we have a slight change. What exactly is the change? Is it just being, oh, I see, from 5 nights to 6 nights. I see. Alrighty. And then number 9 is the approval of minutes from the public workshop and executive session meetings, March 18th, 2019, and then the regular public and executive session meetings from March 25th, 2019. Can I get a motion to move those corrections to the minutes, number 8 and 9?
So moved.
I'm sorry, the correction and the approval of minutes. Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Nope. All right, seeing none, Linda, could we have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes?
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to the student representative report. We have a student this evening. Good evening, Avery.
Good evening. So, not much news from the schools, as last week students were on spring break. But for Bartle, today Bartle had an NJSLA 3rd to 5th for ELA and math. Tomorrow Bartle is hosting an assembly awards ceremony as well as a student council meeting. Finally, on Thursday, there's a poetry cafe presentation. For the middle school, the 6th grade class is going on a class trip to the aquarium tomorrow. Also on Tuesday, the Highland Park Middle School girls softball team has a home game against Edison. We wish them the best of luck. For the high school, Miss Puccio, the high school librarian, would like to extend her gratitude to the Highland Park class of 1969. Their generous donation of a new display cabinet and a newspaper stand is very much appreciated. Additionally, the high school DECA team is gone at a conference. We wish them the best of luck. Coincidentally, the Zayu is also on the DECA team, so he's gone.
All right, thank you so much. Anybody have any questions for Avery? So did you actually get to relax over spring break? No work to do?
Oh,
no.
prepping for APs.
All right. But no assigned work? No. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. So we will move on to Scott's report.
I have one quick item I'd like to bring up, and that's not on the agenda. Relates to the websites. By now, the community and the board probably noticed that we rolled out redesigned websites that were changed as a result of lots of feedback I received personally and via social media. about the lack of user-friendly interaction people were having with the sites. It appears the sites, when they were first developed, were really not made with the parent guardian in mind. So we redesigned the sites to make it much easier to get to things like the school directory, the calendars. It should only take 1, maybe 2 clicks to get to some of the most important items. However, I would love for the board, some have already done this, and the community to get back to me by email if they have any suggestions for additional ways we can improve the experience, the interaction experience. So don't hesitate to email me. I have a pretty stiff back. I can handle criticism. Really, the intent is to learn how we can continue to do better. So don't hesitate to reach out.
So I have a question. How did you do this? Like, I remember the last time that there was a website redesign, it was made to seem like it was the most Herculean effort, tens of
it takes a lot of
thousands of
time.
dollars, but you just like sneezed one out. I mean, I'm sure it was a lot more difficult, but like.
So, so we used a template. I had a lot of input from stakeholders. So we actually organized some committees to help us with this. Some parents were on those committees. It just took a lot of months over time to do it little by little. And here it is. It's a collective effort, really. Just all came together. But it's not a Herculean task.
Oh, well, that's really, I mean, I'm happy, very happy. It looks beautiful.
Wonderful.
And I just had a quick question
Sure.
because I have the app on my phone. And I was wondering, because I do pretty much everything on my phone.
Okay.
You're like one of the kids.
I know.
I'm like the old people. I do everything on my computer. I'm like, what? I can't do that on my
Like
phone.
a-
My phone doesn't do that.
Really old-looking millennial. So as far as the phone app, it often sends you to a dead end. I don't know why
Yeah,
that is.
I haven't advertised it yet because actually Mr. Gardner is helping me on that one. He and I are still working out the kinks.
Well, the app is the app. I mean, I just, I've come to expect nothing. But as far as that goes, I've always kind of just shifted over to
The
my
full site.
Full site.
Yeah.
And that, I haven't checked it out on the phone, but that was my question, is it user-friendly on a phone?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. So I found it to be really user-friendly on the phone.
Okay.
So the app that Michelle's referring to can be downloaded from the Apple App Store. And did we find out if Droid has it yet or no? We don't know, John?
I have it on Android,
Oh, you do?
but it's terrible. I mean, it doesn't have all the content that the full site has.
Okay. Oh,
It's the
yeah. So that
same-
probably is the same problem that Michelle's having.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't think it's a
So if
dead-
you want to just hold off on the app another week or two,
I've given
you're
up on
better
the
off.
app a long time ago. I go straight to the full site.
yeah, go to hpschools.net on the mobile site, and there's a special mobile version that'll come up, and it should have all the content.
Okay, okay.
Maybe we should just get rid of the app, or just, I mean, we don't really need both, right? An app and the mobile version.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. We'll see.
seems
I mean,
like a lot
we'll
of work.
try it. Yeah, we'll play with it.
I don't know, maybe, I know at the high school they have several courses on web design. I don't know if that's a special
that's a good
project. The
idea. I should have
students,
them do that.
right? The students need to know how to develop their own apps.
I should see if I can put them in touch with tech support and just have them go back and forth.
Mr.
if they
Harper's
need
going to kill me, right? Like, I just,
Yeah.
He's psyched right now.
sorry.
Well, so thank you. We'll work on the app. Any other feedback I'm open to. So
It
let's
looks
keep
great.
the lines of communication
Just-
open on that. The other thing I want to touch on briefly as well, so I'm going to stay seated instead of do my walk around because I've only got a few slides to share, is the latest happenings involving 2 student leader groups, of which I'm really proud. Team Pep and Sources of Strength make up between the two, 28 students, a couple of crossover kids. Not all students who are your typical high achievers get involved in everything. We're talking about students who might be, hiding behind the scenes, who have leadership potential, who've taken on more responsibility. They make up Team Pep and Sources of Strength. So I just want to remind the community, the board, of what these organizations are, and I want to show you a couple of up-to-date videos I shot. Right now, Team Pep is made up of 13 juniors and seniors. Next year, we think we'll be opening it up to as many as 20 students. I spoke to the coordinator of Team Pep a couple of weeks ago, who actually visited the diversity celebration. dinner, and she said that we could accommodate up to 20 students. So we're looking to open it up, and we've already gotten, I think, over 25 prospective students interested next year.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's taken off. I mean, the kids are, I don't know if Avery has had any interaction with Team Pep, but I know students are really high on it. Is that your take on it?
Yeah, people really like the program, and generally is what I think.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was very popular when it went away. Like, I don't think it ever declined in popularity. It just kind of
Remind
was
me
one
what
of-
the PEP stands for?
That's a good question. I'll find. I never thought that. well,
Peers
Josh is looking it up.
educating peers, I believe.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to upstage you. It's just that
So right now, it's supported by one faculty member. That's Terry Mitchell, and one supervisor. That's Elizabeth Asamoah. We know that there may be some changes in personnel as a result of the budget next year. We do have a potential teacher who will take on the program if the home economics program is unfortunately cut as it suggested.
It is.
I'll have final word on that Monday night.
Michelle.
Yes.
So actually the Teen Prevention Education Program.
Oh, I was wrong. I apologize.
it sounded good to me.
It sounded really
I was
good.
looking it up at the same
But
time,
that's-
so I
that's-
wasn't checking you. But
So
then
maybe
as I
my source was faulty then. I'm sorry.
So the
like peers
kids,
educating peers.
the supervisors, the teachers, they go for training. Last summer in August, they went on a retreat. So the training took place off-site. This year, it'll take place on-site in late June. We anticipate if there's a new teacher taking this on, that person will be involved in the training. It's comprised of packaged curricula based on researched practices, and it's intended for grade 9 students. So right now, our Team Pep kids are pushing into science classes in 9th grade on a semi-monthly basis. Here's a clip that, if you listen, I think the audio is good on this clip. I took back in the fall, which I never showed the board, the community, of the students preparing in their first period class. They meet every day, first period, or period A, I should say, not first period, period A, to prepare the lessons. And here's some role play that they did as they were preparing for one of the lessons that we're going to do.
We're in a line? Hi, we are Team Pep. Team Pep stands for Teen Prevention Education Program. We are a mix of juniors and seniors who are trained on leadership and sexuality issues. Today we're going to do a workshop on sexual decision making, and we're going to be doing a skit called Let's Wait a While, Postponing Sexual Involvement. My name is Andy.
My name is Kaylee.
I'm Maria.
And I'm Maria. We're here today to talk about sexual decision making. Why do some teens have sex, and why do some teens choose to wait? It's really important to think about who we are and what we want before becoming sexually active.
Some reasons teens have sex is because they feel pressure, or to rebel, or to prove themselves, or to try to keep a partner. On the other hand, many teens choose to be abstinent. That means not having oral, vaginal, or anal sex. Lots of people choose abstinence because they aren't ready for moral or religious reasons, or because they don't want to deal with the possible consequences. Abstinence is the only 100% effective way to prevent pregnancy, HIV, and other sexually transmitted infections.
Sex is all around us in the movies, TV shows, and even music, and they may make it seem like it's no big deal. So it's hard to tell if you're ready or not for the physical and emotional consequences that come with it. So it's very confusing for some people, but we're here to help.
If we take some time to think about what we want and set our own boundaries, we're more likely to make healthy decisions. It's important to remember that not all teens are having sex, and whatever decisions we make, we need to stand up for our feelings and beliefs while respecting our partners.
The next few skits are going to show us some encounters that certain teens face. This will show how awkward the first kiss can be.
So you want to do anything?
Like,
You know, like, what do you want to do?
well, I just like hanging out here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh man, why is this so hard? I really like Corey and I want to kiss and stuff, and I feel like it's a mutual feeling. But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm actually in the friend zone? Or what if Corey expects me to go further? I don't know how to do this. You know, Corey,
What?
I really like being here too.
This is so awkward. Why doesn't Danny just kiss me and get it over with? I really like Danny and I want to kiss, but if I make the first move, maybe it'll seem like I want to do more than that, and I really don't. You know, Danny, if you have something to ask me, you should just go ahead. It's okay.
Really?
Really.
I mean, Corey,
Danny, is it okay if I kiss you?
yeah, that would be great.
but that's all I want to do.
Okay, good. Me too. But there's a lot of people in here. Maybe later.
This skit showed the importance of knowing your boundaries and communicating with your partner, whether it's the first time or any time after that. This is an example of how you can give consent for behaviors you're comfortable with.
It's also important to ask your partner to make sure you have their permission. This is an example of how you can seek consent from your partner. You may think it's awkward to check out your sexual behavior, but it really doesn't have to be. You could just say,
CJ, are you okay?
or on the other hand, you could say,
Mari, do you want me to stop? See, consent can be easy.
just be sure you're willing to listen and hear the answer to your question, and respect your partner's wishes. The next skit shows us how some people feel pressure to lie about sexual behavior.
I'm going to move on to the next slide. I'm also going to try to put my mic up to the speaker this time to see if you can hear it better. I was really, really proud of our kids a couple of weeks ago. Those of you who were able to make it to the diversity celebration dinner saw this presentation. These are our Team Pep kids again, presenting a different angle of their lessons that they give to the 9th graders. Let's see if I can make this work better. Audio.
No, it absolutely.
How do I use a condom? How do I know if I get? My dad might know. Why does my boyfriend always push me around? Does my mom have any idea what's going on? Why can I talk to my Does my mom have any idea what's going on?
Hi, we're Team Pep. Team Pep stands for Teen Prevention Education Program. We're a mix of juniors and seniors trained in leadership and sexuality issues. Today I'll be doing a workshop on teen parent communication. Our workshop is called Talk to Me. My name is Maria.
I'm also Maria.
I'm Sam. I'm Stella.
I'm Andy. I'm Katya. I'm Rizzy. I'm Ichachi. I'm Marzia. I'm Julie. I'm Maya. And I'm Katie.
I love our kids. That was fantastic. The other, that was just phenomenal. The other group that has been doing just tremendous work around the school is Sources of Strength. And this group comprises 15 students. We also have 2 faculty, Christine Krieger and Kim Holman at the Teen Center, supporting these guys. I mentioned that this is the group that is responsible for putting those positive message Post-it notes all over the lockers. I showed you some photos about a month ago. Randomly, one day. Their work is mostly to serve their peers who are in need of mental health support. So those who might be expressing suicide ideation could come to a source of strength, a leader in their peer group who can then help them get the right support. These kids are not trained to be therapists. They're not trained to provide the counseling. They're just trained to be the go-between between the counselor, the support people, and their peers who need help. But they're also helping to change as best they can the culture of the high school and move it into as positive a direction as possible. This is a photo of me and the kids who came together to do a workshop at an ed camp that we sponsored Saturday, April 6th. Ed camp is a half-a-day-long series of workshops that people put on for their peers. We brought about 100 mental health professionals and educators from around the metropolitan region. We had people from New York coming, Philadelphia. They all came together here. In my Taylor notes this Thursday, you'll read more about what workshops were presented. But the focus of this Ed Camp experience was social emotional wellness. And these kids, our Sources of Strength kids, actually did 2 workshops for adults. And they were, as far as I can tell, the most positively received workshop facilitators. The adults in the room are just floored. I have a clip, actually, of them presenting right here to again, mental health professionals, counselors, teachers. We had some professors in the room.
We have family support. We have positive friends, mentors.
So the intent here is just to show you, give you a visual of them in action. They were charismatic, they were articulate, confident, they had great presence. In fact, I've gotten numerous emails from participants who want more information from them, and have even asked if some of our students can come make a presentation to their faculty in one of their school districts. That's how popular they were. So that's it. I just wanted to keep you in the loop about two groups, of which I'm really proud. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I had a brief comment, which is I wanted to thank the Board of Health and also to the student rep to the Board of Health, Marzia, who she initially brought it to the attention of the Board of Health about 2 years ago, also to my attention, that the Teen Pep had been an excellent program here, and that it had fallen off, I think, when a faculty member left. And then she pushed very hard to the Board of Health, but also, Marzia this is, to also internally in the schools to try to help make this happen. And I think the board got enough, Board of Ed got enough push and enough positive thoughts about doing this program that we made it happen. But they really got, she especially got the ball rolling and made presentations to the Board of Health as well, and the program sounds fantastic. So thanks to her, thanks for the help from the Board of Health, and I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, just quickly, could you give us a quick idea of how it actually looks in the school day? I mean, do they offer presentations on a sort of intermittent basis? Do they come
Teen Pep?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, Teen Pep, not social.
So the kids will come out of their classes. Usually they'll take a full day out of a month and be relieved from their classes, the 13 students, and spend the 5 periods taking over. I think right now it's Miss Steffen's class, 9th grade science class, and spending that entire period, presenting a lesson like you just saw. And that might happen once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on how many times they need to see a similar cohort of 9th graders to complete the entire curricula.
Cool. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well,
do I recall you saying that there was intention to move the Sources of Strength program down to the middle school level?
yeah, there's been talk about doing that. That's the hope.
Do we have like an action plan to make
Not
that
yet.
happen for next year?
But budget constraints have hurt us just a little bit because we need to. There is. It takes some funding to provide the training.
Well, remember, we have someone in town who's
That's
willing
true.
to do the
Amy
training. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to come back and help us get it down at the middle school level. And also, I happen to know somebody who's on the board of High Tops, which is one of the groups where we get the Teen Pep program. So or not where we get the Teen Pep program, but I'm happy to reach out to that person as well and see if there are, additional resources that
I'll tell you what, I'll move on
we
that.
don't know about.
They move on that project that we had in mind and follow up with the board next month.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I mean, it sounds like culture-wise, it may be helpful for the middle school to have a student-directed, positive peer interaction program in place when the kids hit the ground running in September.
Very much so.
Alrighty, thank you. Anybody else have anything on either of those? Okay, thank you very much, Scott. So we're going to move on to the board committee reports. Michelle had to step out, but she will be back. So I'm going to propose that we skip over curriculum and we go to finance and move our way through, and then we will scoot back to curriculum, and hopefully Michelle will be back because Rob apparently has no voice.
Not really.
Yeah.
Sounds.
It would be difficult.
Ow, sorry.
Thank you.
That's your punishment for going somewhere warm and sunny over break. Yeah, sitting there with your tan. I have little sympathy. The sympathy level goes way down when you're sitting there tan. But I do have sympathy. Finance. Mark, could you go through the agenda with us, please?
Yes, so we went over most of these at our April 15th meeting. There's one new item. There's several. Item 4 is new. That's a new athletic bill list in the amount of $314. Items numbers 6 through 9, which are also in bold, those will be tabled per Linda's request. Going on, I did want, again, as last time, to thank Lexus on item 15. It's an old item, but I wanted to thank them again for the grant of $2,000 for science equipment. And I wanted to also thank the Highland Park Education Foundation for grants of over $4,000 to two of our teachers for programs in the high school. So we also have item number 26, which is a new item, which is a board member travel. Darcy's going to the NJSBA Delegate Assembly meeting in West Windsor on May 18th. And then 27 and 28, which are also new, are recommendation to fix the pipe insulation at the middle school. And of course, 27 are the bids, and 28 is the recommendation to accept the contract with Pipe Design LLD of East Hanover, New Jersey, for a cost of $8,648.61. And so that's the added notes for the report from last time.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Anybody have any questions on any of the agenda items for Mark? No? All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to personnel. Anne?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Still not working.
Hello. Okay,
That's better.
there we go. Yeah. Okay, so we went over most of these, as with finance, at our last meeting. There are a few new items that are pretty self-explanatory. Number 9, a medical disability leave extension. Number 10, a family leave extension. Scrolling. We have a resignation of our reading interventionist, Miss. Is it Yuan, or am I pronouncing that right? Yuan or Yuan?
Yuan, I think.
Yuan. Okay, sorry, Ms. Yuan. Resignation of a guidance counselor at Irving, and let's see, a new job coach / paraprofessional at the high school. Is that for the GLOW program, Scott?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, number 19. Number 20, leave
It's for the GLOW program.
Great, thank you. Leave replacement para at Bartle.
That's it.
Slowly scrolling, and that is it.
Okay. I did notice also there were some tweaks, it looks like, to number 7. Like some of the dates were
sorry
changed.
about that. Yeah, let me just.
No, that's okay. I just happened to notice it was they were bolded.
In 2,000 years, I'll be up there.
Nah.
Yes, I'm sorry. The medical leave of absence on number 7, the dates were
got
changed.
tweaked.
I don't remember what they were originally, but yeah, they're slightly different today.
There you go. All right. Anybody have any questions on any of the personnel items? No? Okay. Thank you, Anne. So we'll move on to policies. Mark?
Yeah, before I go on policies, I did want to say that the Finance Committee, just to add to Finance, met before our session started this evening, and we did talk about the state of the budget, where we are still looking for additional funds. And we will be meeting again this week on Thursday, because our budget has to be presented next week, and went over some of the areas where the administration could make changes so that we could fit into the budget that we have to propose to the state with the budget cap that the school district has to take. So we're meeting again Thursday, and we will have budget numbers next Monday. Just wanted to not forget that, and I apologize for missing that. For policies, we do have a policy for first reading, which is the organizational chart. In the interim, we did meet on, now I'm looking for the date, we did meet on April 16th, and we did go through a number of policies, including lateness policy, attendance policy, physical restraint policy, and students in, quote, high poverty school districts, which are policies all of which we need to have or need to modify. And we will be just doing one further read on those, but we anticipate those will be on the May calendar. So we will have those 4 in the May calendar. Those were kind of tricky because the lateness in attendance, there are a lot of issues around those. So when you get them, if it's this week or next week, please review. They're not simple. And then we're going to meet again on May 14th, and we have some other new items. We have another whole list of things to keep current on. Rob, we did review, or I reviewed at least with Scott, the issue of loaner equipment. And there is a policy, and we're going to review the policy in the next meeting so that there'd be no conflicts with the computer loaner program that we'll be taking into effect next year. So that's where we are.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Mark? No? Well, we don't have Monique here for Equity and Excellence. Anyone on that committee? Have you guys met or?
Yes, so we have a meeting coming up this week.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you guys can report out on that.
We will report next week.
Next week's meeting, since we have another meeting in next
Yippee.
week. Okay.
I can share that one of the things we're going to tackle is the MOA with the local law enforcement.
Okay.
And I know we're taking a deep dive.
All right, sounds good. Well, Michelle is still not back for the curriculum agenda, so Linda, I'm going to propose that we move on to public comment, and we'll just come back to Michelle when she gets back. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to public comment. I know you know the routine, Anna.
Well, actually, I haven't been here in a long time. My bad. So I'm Anna Perret. I live at 344 Becker Street. I happen to be a faculty in the Department of French at Rutgers, and I will speak in that capacity mostly today. Okay, so I watched with a lot of interest the discussion that happened at the last meeting for 15th. So I'm not going to repeat the points, excellent points that were made by Mrs. Havas and the students who contributed and the parents who contributed. They were all excellent points. I think we don't need to discuss the respective merits of Mandarin and French because obviously in world language education, more is more, right? You need the more language you can offer, the better. A district offering 3 languages in high school will be a much better district than a district offering 2 languages. I think those points were made. I just want to phrase them I want to approach this from another angle and also summarize what has happened since then. And the proposal in particular that the group of Rutgers faculty and community members have been working on for almost 6 weeks now. So I want to give you a sense of what that proposal entails. So I hope to summarize it effectively. My partners in crime, one of them is en route to France, so he sent me over here to present the numbers, which is not my area of expertise, right? But I'm a world language teacher. And I will talk about from the perspective of the finishing line, right? We talk a lot about college readiness. That's our goal, is to prepare students who will be college ready, life ready, who will go on different pursuits in life, maybe college, maybe something else, but there's obviously sending them into the world with a good baggage in world languages is one of the best things that we can do for all our students. So I want to, plea on behalf of keeping 3 language in high school. And you'll tell me, oh, but we can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. No, we can't afford it. Yes, we can afford it, okay? So we have looked at the numbers, we can afford it. So we need the will to run the numbers. It's a major decision to cut a language, to go from 3 to 2, and next is 1, because, I can discuss this in detail. I don't want to be too passionate, so I'll read it
I'll read what I have, and then we can discuss if you wish, without taking too much of your time. So Highland Park schools currently employ teachers of Spanish, French, and Mandarin. Thus, the school has a valuable, extremely valuable infrastructure for diverse language offerings. Preserving all three programs would be a great service to district students. Now, this is not the way we're going, right? We discontinue French in high school, replace it with Mandarin Chinese, and now we're phasing out French and replacing it with Mandarin as scheduled in the discussion 2 years ago. I don't really want to revisit that discussion, but I feel strongly that there was not enough analysis of enrollment projections. There was not enough consideration of what we have, what populations we were serving. It was a rush decision. It was made, it started with a staffing decision and then morphed into a budget decision, right? And what was left out is the curriculum. And the curriculum is the most important piece, I think, in what we do.
I just want to make one correction on it.
Right.
It was never a budget decision.
Okay.
At the time that the decision was made, that keeps coming up, that
So
this
it
was
was
done
a-
as a budget
it was a
decision.
staff-
It was purely a staffing decision.
Okay, it was a staffing decision, but now if we wanna, the implication is if we wanna, well, let's say this. I don't think such a significant decision to phase out French in the entire district should be done on the basis of a staffing situation that's, at one time, and I know, because I know people who were in that committee, that a significant effort was done to find a person to staff that position. I teach at Rutgers. I teach French. I think you know me. Nobody reached out to me. Do you know anybody who can teach French in our district? It's as simple as that. You reach to Mary Kern, who is in the Graduate School of Education. As it is at the moment, there's nobody that's pursuing certification in French in the Graduate School of Education. So she couldn't come up with a good option. Should you have reached to the French department? We have students, graduate students who can teach French. We also have a network. We offer an MAT. The MAT is a program that trains certified teachers who want to for professional development. So our pool of people is one of certified teachers of French. So we can pass a message to our entire pool of trainees that we have. So I'm not saying you didn't do the right things, but I can't imagine you can claim to have done an extensive search without contacting, the Rutgers French department.
Scott, do you want to go through the list of places that you contacted? Because it wasn't just the Graduate School of Education.
So I'm actually going to show you something on
Yeah,
the...
I'm not sure.
Oh, sure. I'll wait till you finish.
I don't want to look at the past.
Okay, but you're bringing up the past, and you're making statements that I don't know that
let's have
jive with what...
I want to make sure I have a chance to present what we want to do moving forward.
Please do.
I'm still listening while I'm changing the monitor.
Go ahead, Ani, you can continue.
Just right, yeah.
All right. So again, it was a staffing decision, right? So we are now suffering from a staffing decision 2 years ago. Things might have changed. If it was a staffing decision, it didn't need a staffing decision 2 years ago.
Okay, wait, can I just, you keep saying...
Yes, okay.
You keep saying we're not going to talk about the past, but then you keep talking about the past. So
Okay.
if you want to talk about what the proposal is, then we can respond to the proposal,
Sure.
but you keep saying you don't want to talk about the past, but then you keep talking about it.
Yes, furthermore, I wrote in the one communication, I wrote a little bit about the process and, relatively low input of the community. I understand only 3% of parents and guardians completed the survey. It's a very small sample. I'm not sure students were consulted either back then, 2 years ago, or now, because now, see, the
Where's this
reason
3%
why
number
we're
coming from, Scott? Do you,
the
the 3%
reason why
number that
we're
keeps getting thrown out? Is that...
revisiting we're revisiting this at this point is because next year, in fall 19, is stage 2 of this phase. Yes, when you don't teach French in 9th grade anymore, and next year you don't teach French in 10th grade, so you shrink the French program. So now we're moving into the high school. So a staffing decision that affected the middle school has this impact, in the entire district. Anyway, so the current tentative plan is to phase out the French program and to grow the Mandarin program. Our pitch and our hypothesis is that an alternative proposals to maintain all 3 world languages are feasible, not in middle school, but in high school. So there are ways to maintain the 3 world language programs in the high school, which would be prudent because the decision to discontinue French in high school was done. Was done before any Mandarin had been taught in the high school. My point is, a decision of that caliber can only be done once Mandarin has been introduced in the high school and we have a serious idea of what the enrollment projections will be in the high school. So phasing it out without ever teaching Mandarin in the school is taking the risk of killing a very successful program. There were more than 100 students enrolled in French in 2017 to 18, right? With a program that might be serving a quarter of that population. And the risk is to create it. I mean, frankly, I know I know the sensibilities of the world. Do you really want to create a hidden, gifted, and talented program in the school through this Mandarin track? Do you really want to do that? Because that's one of the scenarios possible. The other scenario is that the population of people taking, now there's 51 students taking Mandarin in middle school. 51, it's not huge. There were almost half of the students in the middle school taking French when it was discontinued, right? So 51, what's going to be the enrollments next year in 9th grade? How many students are taking Mandarin in 9th grade next year?
Is that a rhetorical question, or do you want me to answer?
No, I don't know.
I can't give you numbers until I go back to the enrollment and look at it again and analyze it.
How many were there this year in 9th grade?
I'm sorry?
It wasn't offered.
It wasn't offered.
How many students?
Yeah, it was offered, right?
That's all. These are all questions I'd be glad to answer in public next week once I have the information in front of me. But I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Neither do I, but my point is that to make predictions that then have budget implications, because that is something, right? The decision wasn't made on budget grounds, but it could have implication in future years that we have to hire another teacher of Mandarin. That's a budget implication, right?
No, I mean, that's not how it was, that's not how the plan was devised so that we would maintain what we have now, which is 2 programs, or what we had prior to this. The intention was never to have 3 programs, as Mr. Krieger has talked about multiple times. The district hasn't had 3 language programs since the 80s.
1989, I was on the school board, which eliminated German. That wasn't discontinued because of lack of teachers. That was eliminated because we only had about 10 students still taking German. That saw a large angry outflux from a very small handful of parents, even though those students were given private tutoring so they could finish 4 years or 5 years of German studies in high school as the program was eliminated. But we haven't had 3 languages in Highland Park, 3 full languages in Highland Park for 30 years, 1989 through this past year.
Actually, I think we did it just a few years ago when we also offered Hebrew.
Yes,
the Hebrew
it wasn't
doesn't
a full
count.
Program.
The Hebrew wasn't really
a
a full program.
We ran
only
Hebrew
had
1 and Hebrew 2, and that was under duress, and it was severely undersubscribed.
Yeah, it wasn't a full program. It was a few students as well, and we couldn't afford to do that either, as we couldn't afford to do a German program with a handful of students.
And as anyone recalls, the reason we brought Hebrew in was to try to avert a multi-million dollar charter school. So at that point, multi-million dollar charter school versus Hebrew 1 or Hebrew 2 made more sense.
Right,
Our
and
budget
when,
situation now is much more dire, so this isn't a very difficult time to talk about now going to 3 full programs.
and when we eliminated the Hebrew, I think there were 4 or 5 kids taking
Right.
it.
Yeah, there was,
So
the
there are
numbers were-
multiple good reasons not to continue.
Decisions are made on the basis of enrollments. That was not the case of French. The French program, when it was eliminated, was very well enrolled. And actually the distribution in middle school was almost ideal. I mean, you don't want a quarter of the students taking one language and 75%.
Anna, make sure you stay with your mic,
You
sorry.
don't want a quarter of the student taking one language and 75% of the students taking another language. Why? Because then you have a track instruction in world languages. So it's really not smart to detract math and track world languages by happenstance, right?
And I will tell you, we will definitely look at the demographics
Yeah.
of those 2 programs and see if what you're saying is the case. I don't think it's inherent that that's going to create a tracked system. So we'll certainly take a look at that. If that becomes an issue, then we will make sure to address it, because that's a priority of this board, is to avoid tracking. So we're certainly not looking to create that within our world language
Darcy, could I
program.
ask a question about that?
My point is, before you eliminate like the third option, which is French, let's make sure that we're not creating a track system. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So let's just kind of put some elements on the table. So Highland Park currently employs 2 middle school Spanish teachers, 3 high school Spanish teachers, 1 Mandarin teacher that's split between the middle school and the high school, and 1 high school French teacher. The tentative plan is to phase out the French program and expand the Mandarin program. It's a replacement model, except that already it's not working, because you have 51 students in Mandarin in the middle school. So it hasn't, the population taking that second language has shrunk. So on year, 2 or 3 of this implementation, it's not the replacement model anymore. It's the tracking model that has.
Can we call it something different than tracking? Because I don't know what you're saying that, but we don't have any evidence that it's tracking. You don't know what students are in that class. I mean, I don't know. Right. So I feel funny calling it that.
Is the assumption that like the gifted children will take Mandarin and non-gifted children will take Spanish? Is that what we're saying here?
No, I'm saying that
I don't understand.
There's an imbalance in the number. 25
Right, but what about the tracking that you're? What is tracking?
A balance in the number isn't tracking. Those are 2 different phenomena.
It's a concern.
I don't know why.
Our resources. It's a concern that the school resources are used to serve. That we use that the Spanish classes are over enrolled, and then that we serve.
But that's different than tracking.
That's not tracking.
I could use another. I just don't know. A bifurcated, whatever you want to call it, but...
well, it's imbalanced. The numbers are imbalanced, but the numbers were, and now they're more imbalanced. I hear your point that the numbers are more imbalanced than they were between Spanish and French. When it was Spanish and French, there were more Spanish students than there were French students. Now there's a lot more Spanish students than there are Mandarin students. So I hear that point, but we're bristling at the tracking piece because I don't know the demographics of those students, and I don't want to make assumptions.
It's a little bit stretching it, but I know that it's an issue that's important to you. So I just want to make sure that before we do something drastic that may have implications at that level, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm not assuming that a certain population is taking a certain language, et cetera, et cetera. Those would be assumptions that would be just wrong to make. But we can be careful that this not happen. And there's ways to, there's ways to do that. Anyways, so expanding the Mandarin program. This means first hiring another part-time Mandarin teacher and then likely converting that position to full-time when the French program is fully discontinued. So as we start offering Mandarin, what you call a full program, as we start offering Mandarin in high school, we will need possibly certainly a part-time teacher, if not a full-time teacher. Again, that second teacher of Spanish is serving a small population. So in terms of investment of resources, having two teachers of Mandarin to serve a relatively small population, and I'm not saying it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. But we have to be I think we have to share resources, and in a way, this is the model that happens this year, right? So in a more positive way. So the drawbacks of the current plan. This plan means the outright loss of the French program and relies on the assumption that the Mandarin program will grow, right? That's an assumption. We don't know that this is going to happen. Maintaining French, which is the source, and maintaining French has many advantages that have been discussed at length last time, so I won't repeat it. So the question is, why choose a large Mandarin program? So basically, we have the resources to offer 3 languages. If perhaps we don't offer 3, we do. We run the numbers. I mean, all I'm saying, for six weeks now, Rob Scott, me, and some other, we've been running numbers, and we've tried to work with corrections and with a lot of consultation. We haven't come up with this plan like ex nihilo. We've consulted with the principal, we've consulted with the superintendent, we've consulted with both language professionals. So this, and we've taken what their feedback. So we modify the numbers. We have a final version of this plan that will be sent to you tomorrow. I mean, the Excel, we have put it in an Excel spreadsheet. I brought this what I'm presenting now, and that it's starting not to make a lot of sense, but I have it in writing so you can read it, and then tomorrow you'll have the numbers. It discusses several options. And
Anna, make sure you go back to the mic. I just want to make sure you're picked up.
Okay, so the concept, I heard we don't have the means to offer a full program. So I think I'm not going to tell you how to teach world languages. I'm just going to tell you that we now have the staff to teach 3 languages, and we're choosing to kill French and to give up an excellent program in French for the benefit of a program that we don't know. We don't know if that program will be successful. It will only be successful if Mandarin attracts, successful intellectually, but also budget-wise, if that population attracts at least as many students as French did, which was considerable.
So Anna,
yes.
We're going on almost 25 minutes, and this is your meeting, so you're welcome to manage it as you wish. However, I bring that up because I need to, Anna, I need to also. I want to also, I bring that up because I need to let the board know and the community know that I feel confident that I am working closely with you and Jenny Chapman and Rob Scott, all of whom reached out to me, with a plan that frankly I thought was very well put together. I can assure you that over the last 3 weeks, since we have met twice in person, and since I have dived deeply into that plan, not only have I analyzed it through and through, but I've also shared the plan with the committees who need to be involved in the discussion about this. And my intent is by the end of this week to make a final recommendation about your plan. Not a final recommendation about French. That's still on the table. That was made 2 years ago. But a final recommendation about how we work with the plan that you're suggesting, because I cannot let any more time go beyond this week before we lose the ability to start scheduling our students at the high school for next year. So with that, thank you, unless there's anything else you'd like to share, unless you want to give more airtime.
Are we out of public comments time? Are we out of time for public comments?
We're not. You're not near the mic, Anna.
Yes. Are we out of public comment time?
Well, we've done a lot of back and forth, so we try not to make it a huge conversation. But I mean, because we've gone over this. So if you have anything else you want to address to the board, then
that we've been working on this very seriously, very intensely for 6 weeks, and that I hope you will read what we'll send you. This is just the introduction, and we have maybe people in the finance committee can take a close look at the numbers that we run, and they're all only like possibilities, and it's not up to us to schedule or to decide what you will teach. If you will teach 2 languages in middle school, 3 languages in high school, or maybe just Spanish in middle school, 3 languages in high school. There's a lot of possibilities. Anyway, before we run out of time for public comments, I do have a second item I want to bring to your attention, and that's the Hague website that was published a few weeks ago. And I just want to know, I know we don't have time, so I just want to ask the district what has been done since we received that statement by the principal of the middle school. I can tell you what I have done, but maybe we don't have time. I just want to announce there's a task force that's been...
Anna, stay by your mic.
Sorry. Anyways, I want to ask, let me ask you, who should I... there's been no communication since that statement was sent to only parents in the middle school and guardians, and there's a lot of concern, and there's groups also outside of the school interested in knowing what actions have been taken, and I just want to know who I should address my questions.
So you're welcome to reach out to Mrs. Osemier. However, I don't think she'll be able to provide you detailed information because at this point what we have deduced is that we are that incident stemmed from actions that took place among, even though I recognize that hate and bias is an issue that this country is confronting across the board. Right now, this particular issue revolved around 6 particular students. So we're treating each student individually for his needs, and we can't comment on those, as you know, because that's confidential information. Mm-hmm. So you're welcome to reach out to Ms. Osemier, but I can't guarantee she's going to be able to provide you that much detailed information.
Yeah, I don't need detailed information. I need to know that my child is safe in school tomorrow, and today he was not safe in school. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'll share with the principal.
Scott, could I just request with the spreadsheet that is coming in, you'll distribute that to the Finance Committee, or when that comes
regarding
in?
French?
Right.
Yeah. So,
their spreadsheet that they send in.
oh, yes,
tomorrow.
I'll share it, of course.
Right.
And I do want to say one last thing, since I put the document up on the screen that Darcy referred to earlier. I need the community to know, especially those who were just walking into this conversation about French and why French was phased out, how this whole thing started. Back in 2016, 2017, we lost a middle school French teacher, and it happened in December. Actually, it happened in November. We scrambled to, I'll enlarge that for you, Anna. We scrambled to find a replacement for that teacher, but like so many of my colleagues still having the problem, we could not find a suitable replacement. And what I'm sharing here is a timeline and some other information at the bottom of the document I'll share in a second, of the steps we took to recruit. Now, besides posting ads from, November to July in all the major newspapers and job websites, we also reached out to the Graduate School of Education. We had the high school French teacher make contacts with her network, including individuals at all of the colleges and universities you see here listed. And then it just so happens that our middle school principal, Ms. Osemier, was a world language teacher, and she is quite involved in her network. So with all of this, we, and here you can also see we reached out to Flenge, the foreign language educators in New Jersey, the Rutgers University World Languages Institute, the Pathway to Career Advancement for Novice and Experienced K-12 Language Educators at the Language Center, on and on and on. We spent almost $7,000, but still, and by the way, did whatever it took. We Skyped with individuals in France, on and on and on. We still could not find somebody after that half a year, multi-thousand-dollar research. And there, by the way, are school districts still struggling to fill those positions. So that's how this whole thing started. I don't want anybody to be misled to think that we just decided we were not going to run a French program anymore. We struggled, and this is where we are now. So I promise I will get back to the Finance Committee with whatever information I get from the parents and go from there.
Scott, it says December 17th. Could you scroll down a bit? No, on the next,
maybe I'm going
second
the wrong
page.
way.
Yeah, it says Susan Allswang hired for the, what does that mean?
That's
Hired
What's
position.
that substitute for to?
Oh, yeah.
Substitute?
So,
Substitute?
we had a long-term replacement sub we found at the middle school, but had to terminate. Well, had to part ways, wasn't a termination. So that didn't work out. Wasn't qualified. We tried. It didn't work out. So then I shared this miscellaneous information. So I just bring that up because I want people to be aware of how this whole started, how this whole thing started. We did not just randomly choose a language and decide to phase it out.
We had numerous almost emergency committee chair meetings, not a quorum, just several of us, to try to work on how can we find somebody. We spent hours and hours and hours, and apparently, and Scott talked to the other superintendents around the state, they couldn't find anyone. And that's the entire problem. As would be if, so we have one French teacher. We don't have a backup like a middle school French teacher and a high school French teacher. So at some point, the high school French teacher, Ms. Havas, would leave or retire. We would then have 60 students we would have to find a teacher for, and we can't find a teacher.
But we're not going to keep going back and forth.
Yeah, I don't want to go back and forth. I just want to tell you what the board fears. The fear which we went through in German of finding, the fear of us finding it's not about money. It's about the fear of finding ourselves in the position that the board in 1989 found of we're terminating German, we're stopping the program. How are we going to find even a tutor for our 9 or 12 students? And thank God we found somebody who was certified enough to tutor those 9 or 12 students. But if we had 60 and no teacher, and no one can find a teacher, it would be a disaster for the district. That's our real concern, and that is the concern, and something the board really cares about and has been discussing. You know, we can only discuss in public while we're in public, but I love French. I learned French. I became fluent in French when I lived in Geneva. I would love to keep French. If we had any chance that we believed that there were a dozen available French teachers, then or now, we would have a different perspective. We don't have confidence that we won't be left high and dry trying to finish the 4 years of French or the 5 years or the 3 years for the 60 students who would be taking French.
Right. But Anna, you can't go back and forth from your seat. You just can't.
I've tried to address your question.
All right, let's.
Hi. I've been listening carefully, and my name is Dara Botvinnik. I live at 348 Becker Street, and this is kind of hard to come up and say. I'm speaking as a community member. I'm also a teacher in the district, and some of the recent incidents in the news and in our school have really affected me very, very deeply, and I've spoken to administration. We've had open conversations, and I'm so grateful for those conversations. I want to speak about the fact that we need to name bias. We need to name the kinds of biases that come out to the community. I know there are issues of privacy, but if there are issues that are anti-Semitic in this day and age, we need to say anti-Semitic. If there are issues that are anti-gay, we need to say anti-gay. If they're anti-black, we need to say anti-black. And we need, as a progressive district, to have really, not strict, but really clear policies and professional development about how we deal with these issues. And I know the board has started to take some of this on, and I'm very appreciative. And I think the scope is so much bigger than I've ever experienced in my career in terms of how do we handle these issues. And my voice is shaking because I don't know the answers. I don't think my colleagues know the answers. And I'm basically saying very, very clearly, we cannot sweep this under the rug. We need to explore how we help everyone open their minds and how we handle it when people are not open. And I really think it's important that we develop committees that work with the school, with the town, with the temples, with the churches, throughout the entire community, because we are a strong, progressive community, and I have not yet heard the conversation that's really opening this up. And that's pretty much what I came to say tonight, that I appreciate us all working together, and we honestly need to do more, a lot more, and I want to be a part of that. So I'm saying sign me up for whatever we all think would help, but I want to help. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
Could I, Darcy, do you mind if I say something?
No.
I mean, it's speaking to Anna's comment as well. I mean, some of the incidents that I've heard about, you know, I have Jewish children, and when I think about them going to school and hearing some of the things that, you know, the grapevine tells us have been going on, it is scary and it's not safe. So, I mean, I agree. I would like to hear, I would like us to have a community discussion of some sort. I don't know what that would look like, involving some board members, administration, teachers. You know, this has to stop, and I want it to stop without, you know, demonizing our children that are having issues with it. So I don't know, Scott, is anything like that planned to sort of
So Dara and I actually had a meeting. I mentioned it to the board.
Oh, that's right.
Early one morning with a couple of other teachers, and all the things that Dara just mentioned, we discussed.
Okay.
And I wrote a lot of those things down. Things like meeting with Ashton Burrell and the local, and John, I forgot his last name already, White.
Wentz?
Wentz, thanks. And the commission here in town that focuses on these issues. Because I agree, we have to do more of the borough, I think, as well. This is a systemic problem.
And they have a new commission, too.
So you're going to be hearing from me more about that.
Okay.
We just had this meeting right before break, so I haven't had a time to jump on these
Right.
actions, but there's definitely things I'll be looking at.
Well, and my understanding, though, is that you've also, as these incidents have been occurring, you've been in touch with the Anti-Defamation League, you've been in touch with Garden State Equality, trying to assess from them what the action steps should be when these kinds of issues come up in a school. I mean, obviously, it's very tricky when there are students and it's confidentiality issues,
Right,
and
of course.
and I feel like sometimes the response has, you know, like, I don't know that we always get clear guidance on what the right steps are. Like, you know,
Well, I
can
do
you
get
speak
guidance,
to that at
like,
all?
I do get different people, different organizations telling me different things, but we're trying to take all those things and compile them. So, for instance, the ADL suggested a program.
I mean, I just want to, I want you to kind of go through it a little bit, because I don't want
Okay.
folks to get the impression that we're not talking to these organizations or that we're not labeling things. I mean, we're clearly seeing what the components of these things are and trying to reach out to the organizations, but I feel like a lot of the feedback you get is not have the assembly, you know, like not have the, like that's not the thing to do, you know, and to try to address it more directly with
So
the
look-
parties involved.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, wait, let me let Scott respond.
I think we need to all be reminded that we're trying to change the culture. We've been trying to do that for the last 3 or so years by including restorative practices, by focusing on cultural responsiveness. I know we did a lot of that work. Maybe it hasn't happened as much this year as it should have in our professional learning communities around cultural responsiveness. Taking the implicit bias assessment, trying to recognize what our hidden biases are, all as a means of us first as adults trying to help each other understand how we may be negatively impacting or microaggressing against other people, not just macroaggressing and not just overt bias, but micro bias as well, so that we can then model that for our kids. But, you know, more concretely, I mean, we've been, so as Darcy mentioned, you know, I've been working with Garden State Equality. We are slated to be one of the first schools, middle schools in particular, to be including the organization's new LGBTQ inclusive curriculum. It's not ready yet, but as soon as it is, we're on the docket to be absorbing it, and I'm hoping that'll happen in September. I've been working with the ADL. They've been recommending a youth version of a program that we can try to incorporate into our in-school suspension model. We're in the throes of revamping our in-school suspension program, so it's more whole child supportive. And the program that they're recommending we could incorporate into the in-school suspension program is
Right,
titled...
so instead of, I just want to point out that the idea being, when these kind of incidents arise inside the schoolhouse, not to then call the police or suspend the students, but to actually have a supportive environment within the school system that will use that time that we need to remove the students from the environment to actually teach them, to actually have a program available that is going to try to work on those biases and is going to try to educate those students, because that's what we're here for, right? We're not here to send children to prison. Right. We're not here to send students home and just let them sit there and get more angry and hateful. That's my biggest fear when these things come up, right? If our response as a community is the police or suspension, then we've seen any of these number of students who get severely disaffected and violent. That's the pattern, right? The pattern is they are ostracized, they are pushed out, they are, they feel like other, and then they feel like even more like other, so trying to figure out a way to work with them while still keeping the other kids safe. It's this massive, and teachers, it's this massive balance of how do you meet everyone's needs and meet them where they are?
Yeah.
And that ADL program, for anybody who wants to Google it, it's called Becoming an Ally, Responding to Name Calling and Bullying. So we're looking at that and potentially implementing it in September of 2019.
Can I respond to that? That's so exciting that you've been speaking with the ADL. I just want to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the initial contact with the ADL, unless you called separately, came from me. So what I want to tell you is, I'm so glad that we're following through as a district, but what I'm telling you is that there's nothing been in place. A lot of teachers have mobilized to create a response, and administration along with that has created their own response. And I'm saying, and we've been working together, but what I'm saying to you as a board, quite honestly, is in meetings, restorative meetings, we have people who are saying that this is new territory, new ground, that everyone needs training, right? That this is not everyone knows exactly how to handle it. And I'm saying that openly here. We don't really know how to handle it, but I'm telling you, some of the response has been a grassroots response. And what I'd like to see happen moving forward is a really, really concrete system in place for if this were to happen again, how we would handle it as a community, how we're moving forward, what systems are in place. And I'm so glad to hear that the ADL reached back and that we're talking about these programs. That's amazing. Okay, thank you.
I think the idea of having some kind of crisis response type of thing is a good idea.
So I'm going to talk about the discipline study groups work a little bit.
Sure.
Yep. So good point. One of the things that the community is probably not aware, but there are all these committees at work right now. So we have two in particular that are focusing on just what you pointed out. The discipline study group, it's a stakeholder group. I don't think you're on that one. And the central leadership team, which the board, the HPEA leadership is involved with in the leadership team. And we've all come up with the same point, same need. We've got to have a flow chart, right? Or a proper a protocol, like you pointed out, that I think is we're going to end up being able to codify sometime ready over the summer for fall implementation, so that when we have an issue like this, which by the way is I've been told by our teen center and by veterans, the incident we dealt with, first time of that magnitude that we've had to confront that, at least in their recent memory, because members of the teen center, who I thought have been handling it beautifully, thank God for them, still needed to do research in order to get there, because it was the first time we've been hit with such a profound problem. So you're right. They've already asked for that. We're prepared to do that. It's
Scott, can I just ask? I feel like the communication that came from the middle school, that very short, terse message about what happened, was not adequate at that point and still is not adequate. I don't think that the public right now really knows what you're talking about, and you're presenting it as this major issue, and Dara is as well, and people are going to be saying to themselves, well, what is going on there?
Okay.
So I think that it behooves us, at this point, moving forward, to somehow communicate much more effectively with middle school and high school, the whole school community.
We've been advised, we make decisions, but the Honeywell that was sent out was a collaboration among many people. It wasn't just Mrs. O who came up with it. I worked with her on it. We had some other people who we trust help us. And the consensus was find a balance between not panicking people, because while it was a big deal, it really, I'm seeing it as somewhat of a localized big deal right now.
I'm hearing it's a little bit more of, I mean, tonight is really the first time I'm kind of hearing it's more than what I've been presented. And I'm not asking for details. I don't need names. I don't need pictures. But if it's something very big that's festering and growing, I want to know about that. I live in this community also. I have children in the school, and I think the whole community needs to know about that.
Well, look, do we have a problem with bias? Yeah. Is it of the magnitude of the incident that occurred that involved a very small group of students? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm in these halls. I'm not in the classroom, but I'm in those halls every day for a couple of hours every day. I'm very visible. I have a pulse. I live here. My deduction is that we have an issue where we've got a lot of things in place to try to combat the issue. We still have more work to do. And some of the things that came out of that meeting is that work.
But
we're not at DEFCON 5.
Can we put out a statement maybe on the website?
I don't know if that would help or hurt the situation.
Right, especially when it's a small group of students. We have to be careful.
But what I'm hearing is it's a small group of students, but it's a larger problem.
But it's still a small group of students.
But put out a statement just saying we are doing all of these things and name them, like you said, even the sources of strength and the teen pep and all of those sort of programs that help students help each other and help faculty work with students, everything that enlarges and expands on our communications and our working with each other is great. Why can't we put it out there to people? Like we know that you're all talking behind the scenes. We know that this is on social media. We want you to know that this is what we're doing. People need to know that the school is actively naming what it is, number one, calling it what it is, and then addressing it. To do anything less than that, I think is just not fair.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't know how to say it exactly, because you're right. We hear about particular incidents, and I don't think we want to advertise those incidents, those children, and, their confidentiality is really important. But, yeah, everybody in the community is talking about it. Kids are coming back, and, I know my kids report things that are said that are, not within the scope of certain disciplinary issues. I mean, we've just acknowledged that kids are kids, and, it's not surprising we have some biased speech that goes on a daily basis. But, yeah, it might be a good idea to put something on the website that points the community to these things we're doing. I don't know. But something to think about?
I'll give it some thought, and I might be reaching out to you, Ruth and Ann, because I would need some guidance from you, because I feel that what we did was sufficient, but I recognize that there's always different ways we can handle it. So I'd like to hear back from you.
Okay. Avery, you wanted to add something, and then I think we have more public comments, so let's.
I think what Ms. Beyer is kind of getting at, and what I'd like to kind of affirm, is that especially in like a smaller school district like Highland Park, there's often kind of an idea, and I know a lot of people have said this, that we're kind of like this bubble of a district that we kind of like to sometimes, not always, see ourselves as like a really ultra progressive supportive school district, and I think that's frustrating, coming from a perspective of a queer student, because the school district is no better than any other district in the nation in terms of hate speech. I think definitely we've done a lot of things legislatively in our policy to create a more accepting environment, but students still continue to produce and put out hate speech. In fact, the Saga group at the high school has been accumulating a report on different instances of hate speech, and I believe it's been shared with all of you.
No.
No.
I think Dr. Taylor. Okay, yeah, I'll talk to Katya, but and yeah, so I think I definitely understand that there's a fine line between acknowledging that there is an issue and then kind of promoting or reciprocating that issue and causing more of that issue to happen. And so we need to, kind of be careful not to cause the latter to happen. But I think there is definitely something to be said for acknowledging that, we, along with every other school district and any organization or institution, have problems of bias and, listing this is what we're doing to prevent that from happening and to combat this.
Or I really hear these are our responses. This is our our critical response team, for these kind of incidents. Thank you, Avery. And we look forward to getting that from Saga. So if you can get in touch with somebody from there, say, they didn't get it.
Hi, I'm Sarah Heimowitz. I live at 216 Graham Street. I have 2 kids in Bartle, and I am panicking a little bit, a lot, because I heard about the Honeywell message, what's this recent incident in the middle school, but that also sparked other people, friends of mine, to say, oh yeah, and then there was this other anti-Semitic incident in the high school that I'm hearing about for the first time. And not just anti-Semitism, but all sorts of racism and bigotry. And I am concerned that that now we realize that we need to do more to be proactive, and a crisis response is important and critical. And if there's restorative justice, if there's a plan, then I think parents should know what that plan is and what's going to happen, because of course we have to preserve and protect the privacy of the kids involved, but the other kids know what's going on because they hear about it, and maybe what they're hearing is not all accurate. I'm sure it's not all accurate, but they need to know that it's being taken seriously and that something's being done too. And they don't need to know about who's in school suspension or what that entails, but they need to.
Oh, they know that too.
They know that already.
But they need to know that these kinds of incidents are being treated on the level that they need to be and deserve to be. And I think parents really weren't aware of what exactly happened recently in the middle school, because it was kind of a cryptic message, and for good reason. I understand that the privacy has to be preserved. But I think that as a community, we need to do more, not just within the schools, but with religious communities, with faith communities. We like to think that we're in a bit of a bubble, particularly with anti-Semitism, because we're in a Jewish community. And yet,
we're not.
My kids have been the only Jewish kids in their class some years.
Yeah, same here.
Because, many kids in this community don't go to the public schools, so it's, it's a strange dynamic for us. But we're certainly not immune to racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, all of that awful stuff, and it's horrific to turn on the news and see what's happening and to think that that's creeping into our community. So to the extent that we can be proactive and form committees within the town with various, actors in the town, I'm happy to give whatever support I can so that we can really be a model, because we're not the only district facing this, and unfortunately it's just going to increase, and we know it's going to happen again. We know these are not isolated incidents, and we have to do everything we can to nip it in the bud and to work as a community to stop it from happening again, and from showing that we're taking this seriously and we're not going to tolerate it in our communities. So I hope that we can do that, because
I like that point in particular about making sure that the students know that we're taking it seriously. I mean, one way to sort of make students feel safe is, the school needs to communicate that it's not okay that they hear in the lunchroom, anti-Semitic comments, that they hear racist comments in the lunchroom. The school takes that seriously, and it's, there's somebody looking out for them. I mean, I have discussions with my children. Have you heard any, what happened at school today? You heard, they tell me about weird stuff that they heard, and it's hard for me to know what to tell them exactly. Well, that's not acceptable, what that student said to you. It would be good for them, it would be good for our students to see us really reacting, not punitively, but dramatically or vehemently, to show them that we're working on the issue. I don't know.
Would you sign in, please? Would you please sign in, sir?
I just wanted to
There
say
should be a
something.
pen there unless someone stole it.
Anna?
I wanted
There was a pen
I
there.
wanted to say something very briefly, so in case the community doesn't know, the board has executive sessions before our 7:30 meetings. They start at 6:30, and for the last 4 years, and again, I was on the board many years ago, and we didn't have long executive sessions, and we didn't have executive sessions where all we talked about, for the most part, were discipline, harassment, intimidation, and bullying reports. And this board, in the 4 years I've been on it, has had those meetings every session, and we talk about discipline, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and we take it very, very, very seriously. And we had that meeting tonight where we discussed this exact set of matters, and we're trying to find a way to deal with something we haven't dealt with. And our superintendent is taking it, and administration is taking it very seriously.
And that's where the idea came from, revamping this in-school suspension program, so it's not just kids sitting there. We're actually infusing that with programs that can help work with students who are, it's so hard, right? Because sometimes students express things that are very difficult, right? And it's our job to serve all of those students.
Yes.
And we have to find a way to work with those students to maintain them in our community, and if we can't maintain them in our community, to make sure they go somewhere where they're going to get the support that they need and require, not just to cast them out. So we're trying our best to, keep all our students here, give them everything that they need. Oh, that's a great, to put that up, Scott, thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, what Darcy's talking about is moving from what we have now, which I call a partially support-based program for the kids who we do try to remediate, keep in this community, to a fully support-based program. And I'm proposing these components be part of that. Wouldn't take a whole lot of additional, doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes planning and creativity and moving around of some of our resources, providing these kids with more psychiatric counseling.
But part of what I'm hearing is that the communication piece is what's missing. And if you remember what we did last year after there was that large fight, that was very concerning, and we had heard concern from teachers. What we did was we put together that forum because we had a very specific response, and the board made a very conscious effort that our response to that wasn't going to be to have armed guards or increase security. It was going to be to increase our support for those students and how we were going to do that. And that at that point came in the form of an additional vice principal, so that each building had its own vice principal, and Mr. Harrison, whose position I can never remember the name of.
Youth safety specialist.
Thank you. I don't know why I have such a mental block with that, but that we have a supportive, nurturing, yet somewhat intimidating presence in the hallways to let students know that that kind of behavior wasn't going to be acceptable. It sounds like we may need something on a similar scale for this to say our response is still going to attempt to be therapeutic and supportive, but these are the things that we are going to put into place to make sure when these instances come up. And, I have to say, so far with what we've done in the high school, it seems to be working. We haven't had any large-scale fights. I haven't even really heard about any small-scale. So, we seem to have done something that's moved us in the right direction there. Are you going to tell me something opposite, Avery? No, go ahead. Avery's like, no. Wait a minute.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, although I haven't really been in the school district for too long. But I would suggest that in the future, policy approaches attempt to kind of involve student groups, especially I think in terms of the LGBTQ specific kind of addressing those issues. I think we do have another group for African American students as well. But I think that can kind of be like the bureaucratic function of getting these policies to be more effectively implemented, because in reality, these are the students that are in the club that they actually go into classrooms with the rest of the student body. So I feel it would be most effective to get the opinions and also use these groups as a way of implementing policy within the schools, because that also allows for queer students to have input into this process and advise us on how best to take action against this hate speech or bias, because in reality they're probably going to be the best sort of people to know what to do in combination with research and your policy perspectives as well.
Well, this forum that we put together, I think we called it a safety forum, involved quite a few students. Yeah. We had a great student turnout. So I think that is something which we should do, and we could do it before the end of the school year. So we would have time to make whatever.
I know that we kind of discussed it last time we met as the TGNC policy kind of check-in. That's the small group of parents and professionals that we have for the TGNC policy. But, specific to that policy, perhaps that could be an area in which we could invite some students from different grade levels to give us input. And I do know that sometimes when we work on policy, there are maybe some assumptions that we make as adults that, students know that we are here to listen to them, that we are going to be responsive. And, I think those are assumptions that we make because we are all on the same page as a board and the administration, like we're all doing our best. And so, we appreciate the best in others, but I don't know if the students who need us to tell them that directly are getting that message. So that's what I'm hearing. Like in the conversation as a whole, I feel like that's something that we should absolutely put some more energy behind, doing better for those particular students. And of course, you can't single out, some kid in the corner and say, "Hey, I see you over there looking sad." Like, that's not the way to do it. I think, though, that there is a way to do it, to send the message that we are ready to be responsive, and we are. Like, we are absolutely willing to listen and to be responsive. So, I just want to say, that as a grown-up in the community, that I do get a sense that the kids are a little bit, what's the word? Not complacent, but kind of just, a little bit, maybe not hopeful that they're being heard.
So, Scott, can you put some folks together to see you making little tasks for yourself? Okay.
I'm doing it as we speak.
Alrighty. I'm glad you're good at that because I'm not. All right, so if there isn't any additional public comment, we are going to move on and thank everybody for coming out and for your comments and for keeping us abreast of the pulse of our community and what's going on. So, Michelle, we skipped you and then went to public comment, so we're going to come back to you, although you have nothing new on your agenda and you guys haven't met. So I'm assuming it's really kind of perfunctory to...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to talk about.
Okay, if you have nothing to talk about, you got nothing to talk about.
I mean, I have plenty to talk about, but nothing you'd want to hear about. So, yeah, I mean, the field trip request, I was just looking through them. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look through them, but there was one question I actually had about the field trips. The Zimmerly Art Museum, it says that that's for the high school students, and it's Ms. Grunstein, Ms. Fantry, and Ms. Schmoen. And there's 34 students going, and they're walking. Everything about that I love. I just don't know what grade levels we're talking about or what classes we're referring to. I'm assuming this is an art class. I don't know which art class. I just wanted to know. I'm just very curious.
I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll pull it up now and do some texting.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Okay, so if we don't have anything else for curriculum and instruction, we will actually start with our action items. So Michelle, we'll go right back to you, and you can move those items.
Okay, I just wanted to mention one more thing,
Sorry,
just
did
so
you
you
already
know.
have an answer?
I'm sorry, I looked
Yeah.
at the teachers' names. It's high school.
It's high school. Yeah. I just wasn't sure what grade levels or what classes.
Oh, I'll find out specifically. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably the community art
Like, what
class.
are they
but I'll find
wearing?
out.
No, I don't need all those specifics, but, you know.
Will there be snacks?
Yeah, what are they eating for snacks? No, I just wanted to remind everyone that the curriculum committee is meeting this Wednesday at 3, in case any of you wanted to show up, because you're looking for something to do at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. That's just for board members, not community members. Please don't show up at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Anyways, I would like to move items number 1 through, oh gosh, I'm not looking at the right page. I'm sorry, 1 through 3.
Alrighty, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No, seeing none. Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Moresti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Mark, could you move the finance facilities items for us,
Yes,
please?
I'm going to move items 1 through 5. We're tabling 6 through 9, and I'll be moving with that items 10 through 28.
Alrighty, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Nope, seeing none. Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Boy, your voice sounds a little different on each yes, Rob. It's very interesting. Personnel. Anne, could you move those items for us, please?
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 27, please.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have some discussion. I just want to point out that we've had a number of retirements this year.
Yeah.
And that I know at the end of the year when we have a meeting and we acknowledge all our people, I just want to make sure that's on our radar, because we have a lot of people we want to say thank you to as they retire and leave us and go put their feet up, hopefully on a lounge chair
We
for a
just
while.
received another retirement today, who will be announced May 3rd. May 6th next week. So we're going to not be recognizing as many students as we usually do in June. The athletic department confirmed that it has its own recognition dinner. So we thought it'd be best if we just focus on academic recognition and the retirees. So I think it'll all work out nicely this year.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, because this is the biggest chunk of retirements I think we've had in quite a while.
It seems like it, yeah.
It's all the more important to have everyone get together and give them a nice send-off. So
Can we wear gowns and tuxedos?
Ooh, that'd
and
be
things?
fun.
Fancy style.
Okay,
Prom.
so if there isn't any other discussion, Linda, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Okay, and Mark, policies?
Yeah, I'd like to move item 1.
That was easy. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Linda, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Wislevich?
No.
Okay, so next we have our board liaison reports. We have anything from our?
No, not yet.
friend?
The
Okay.
municipal liaison hasn't met yet. Since.
Okay. Mark?
Nothing, no.
You got the quiet,
Very
quiet
quiet.
ones this time. Rob, I know you've got stuff for us from the Ed Foundation.
Well, actually, I did not attend last week's meeting, but I think we were aware of the upcoming gala casino night, which is on May 11th.
Yep.
Right.
I'm gone, sadly.
Yeah. So everybody get out there, get your tickets, and have a good time.
Oh, and do I need to make another graphic for you, or did you?
No, we're all set.
We're all set. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. And you have money from everybody?
Not yet.
No.
All right. Well, there's everyone's reminder. Get out your checkbooks, folks.
Get your check.
Hey,
The board puts an ad in there.
Yeah, I try not to be too tough on that, but yeah. Anytime, guys.
Look, I said it, and money's flying around the board table now. Okay. Anne, do you have anything for us from the commission for universal access?
No, I don't. Meetings have been traditionally on Mondays, so I've been not able to go. They've been coincidental with our board meetings, but I understand that is going to change for the new semester.
Alrighty, that'll be good. Public library. There's no library. No library meeting. Okay.
Can I say something about the library, or no? We want to go through these.
What do you have to say?
Oh, what I have to say is this. I saw at the library recently there's a sign on the door, pretty stern sign, warning students that they have only 2 hours on the computer and that don't stand. I mean, I actually thought it was less than that, so 2 hours sounded better than I thought. Students are not to stand over one another's shoulders, looking over shoulders at the computer. Anything students do that. I'm not phrasing this very well. The librarians have the discretion to eject students from the library, for any inappropriate behavior, at their discretion. It was very stern, and it made me wonder if perhaps the discipline issues at the library are getting ramped up again, or at least the perception on the part of librarians that people are misbehaving, and the perception on the part of students that they are or perhaps are not misbehaving. Oh yeah, here we go. It's one person per computer. Do not stand next to, behind, or near anyone else. We reserve the right to remove you from the building for any behavior we decide is inappropriate. Now, of course, those things have always been true, the latter anyway.
Do you ever sit down and meet? It sounds like it would be good for you to sit down and meet with the library director.
Yeah, I'm actually meeting with the board and coming up, actually, it's the next board meeting. So I'll be there in front of the entire library board.
I mean, we seem to have an ongoing issue with students that come over, especially from the middle school, right after school. I'm sure sometimes they are really rowdy. I think other times they talk. And I think the talking, I'm sure the librarians understandably, are looking for quiet. But hopefully they also view themselves as working in partnership with the district. And students who don't have computers go to the library. Sometimes they work on projects together and someone has to stand and look over someone else's shoulder. And I hope that in an effort to achieve quiet, we don't sort of lose the sense of us being partners. And this has been going on for a long time, so I just hope that, I'd like that to be a priority for us in working with the
May
library.
20th, I've just confirmed, I'm meeting with them May 20th. Perhaps we can collaborate on a plan. I don't know if they have any input. And I could also work with perhaps Sean Harrison, our youth safety specialist. Maybe he's actually around that vicinity. He hangs out by the driveway, entranceway to the high school. At around 3 o'clock, which is when a lot of the kids are there, maybe he can also assist in some way.
That might be nice. I think the problem probably goes both ways. It's not just that the students are being unduly rowdy. I mean, there have been times when I've been in the library and my perception was that they were acting like normal students talking, just as adults often talk in the library, even though perhaps you shouldn't talk in the library. And perhaps there may be an inclination on the part of some librarians to feel with students like they need to keep a tighter lid on it. Because, of course, they're kids, it can get out of control more easily. What I'm trying to say is it's not just a question of the students calming down and having the stern presence of Mr. Harrison there to keep them calm. It's also an issue of the library perhaps I'm wondering if there's any way the library can be a little more flexible and welcoming of our students, at least for a couple hours after school.
Yeah.
The adults, we have the library the rest of the day.
I'll feel things out on May 20th.
Okay.
So, Scott, I just wanted to mention that I'm next door neighbors to a library board member, and this came up in conversation. So what I heard was that they're losing a staff member or two. I'm not quite sure.
Just one.
We're just one, okay.
As if that's good, but
No,
it's
I mean,
only one.
Right, so it's not good, but that the problems are not centered around, from what I understand, not centered around noise. But it could be that noise is a problem. But anyway, I think that there is room for some kind of partnership where the librarians don't have classroom management skills, because that's not what they do in library science.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a certain grade level of students that we're dealing with, but I'm hopeful that things can be worked on. It sounds to me like this list was meant to address specific problems, but rather than dealing with specific problems, they made the solutions as broad as possible.
Is that something you want me to see? Or no?
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean,
It's just a public
it's a
sign.
public sign. I could send my phone down with it if you don't mind, but
Understood.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
I could text
But
it
maybe
to you.
could you reach out to them before the 20th? Because that's, we're practically to the end of the school year at that point. It sounds like it might,
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I'd like to see that.
I mean, it might be a question of actually asking them to change their mentality for a couple hours, to have like sort of a, middle school hour, at least for the first hour and a half, where kids could come and they could talk in normal voices, just as adults do. I mean, I've heard about incidents where kids were talking no louder than, adults typically talk in the library or on their cell phones at the library, and there's been more of a reaction. So maybe we could actually ask them to do us the favor of being a little more flexible, particularly during specific time periods.
Well, good luck, because
No, I
that
know.
conversation has been going on for a long time, including Captain Corbello.
Yeah.
Captain Corbello.
Captain Corbello,
has
yeah.
been having that conversation with them for a very long time now, to please, have a little bit more patience, have a little bit more understanding. Don't call us because one
Okay.
of the kids is talking too loudly. And
Are
Okay.
you kidding me?
Oh, constant.
Seriously?
Calling the police?
Yes, constant.
All right, so Scott, and Darcy, I think we
Yeah.
really need to emphasize that. That can't be happening.
No.
That's part of our
That's
plan for
doing-
people to have Wi-Fi is to go to the
It's
library.
doing damage to the relationships we're trying to foster.
But to sympathize with the library to a
Absolutely.
certain extent,
Yeah.
they're
Of
under
course.
tremendous amount of
Yes.
stress right now as their
Absolutely.
budgets have been cut.
This is a problem for years,
And it's a
though.
problem in town. I mean, it's a
Right.
town-wide school, library, council of a money issue, of not having enough people there.
I totally understand.
It's a terrible
disrespectful
situation.
behavior
Of course
also.
there is, of
There
course.
is. I mean, I've
Absolutely.
seen it. I've seen kids being extremely disrespectful to the librarians, and that's not okay. It's
And
not appropriate.
I've also seen the librarians make really strong friendships with the kids who really need, guidance or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is, I totally understand. I mean, I used to be an employee there, but I would hope that, the teachers, the staff, the administration would be the people that they would reach out to, rather than the police department.
And Scott did meet with Jane. You met with her a year ago, Scott, I believe.
I did, yeah.
To discuss this. And if you're going to see the board, she'll be there. The other people will be there, and I think they'll be I expect they will be sympathetic to our position.
And
I did receive the screenshot or the picture that
Oh,
you
good.
took. Thanks.
Sure.
I have a very close neighbor
Yes.
who lives in my house. It's
Lot
on the
closer than
library
mine.
board.
All right, thanks for that, Anne. So I have nothing, as always, from shared services. Ruth, I'm assuming nothing's changed with CPAC. We did talk
Nothing.
about you.
Yeah, what did you ask me?
The idea about connecting you with the PTOs.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So maybe let's work on that.
Remember that.
Let's work on that.
That was
You
a
and
good
I will
idea.
work on that.
Take notes.
We did have a meeting with the Irving PTO folks. There's a budget meeting, and they were very sweet, but there's just two of them, and they're trying to,
Oh,
yeah, oh no, so
sweeties.
bad, running running book fairs like
That's
by
a lot
themselves, just the
of
two
work.
of them. And
Two people?
Two people showed up.
Two people.
It used
So
to be a lot more than that, and it was a
Either
lot.
people in town have a lot of confidence in us on the
Right.
budget, or else they're getting the tar and the feathers
No, but I
ready.
just
We
mean,
just
no,
don't
but I
know.
just mean that there's only two people like holding up the entire Irving PTO.
It's
so
true. It's
you
true.
know.
That's what they said.
All right.
Times are tough. Ugh.
Where are we? Monique's not here to tell us about postsoc and anything human relations.
No, our meeting was canceled so that members could attend the session, the council session, the public session about the new police chief.
Gotcha.
I don't know if anybody here went. I did not.
I did not. I was not available that night. Okay, Michelle, you got anything from the Board of Health?
So the Board of Health is, as we said last time, looking for liaisons from the current 7th grade, so the rising 8th graders, because they would like some representation from the middle school. I think that they've gotten a list of possible representation for the high school from the Teen Center. Ms. Asamoah was very graciously adding some names to a list that she thought would be great resources from the high school. But we're still looking for some kids who could have dedicated time to spend once a month at the Board of Health who would be in the 8th grade next year. So know anyone, let the Board of Health know. And of course, you have to be willing to show up. That's the most important thing. So what else did we talk about? We talked about the upcoming Earth Day that just passed.
And didn't happen?
It didn't really happen, yeah. I'm not really sure.
Crummy weather.
Yeah. Not really sure if that's going to be rescheduled or anything, but I doubt it.
I don't think so. I think it was just canceled.
Yeah. We also talked about the Teen Pep Program. So we're super happy to donate, what they could, resources and other things. They said we have got to make sure that the T-shirts happen again. They were fantastic. So they're setting aside resources for the T-shirts again. And they're going to have to do a pretty good job next year because these T-shirts this year were outstanding. Also, I wanted to make a correction. I said that Rite Aid, being a big corporate place, is taking drugs, used prescriptions back. So they have a take-back program. That's actually not true. The Board of Health is trying to get them to participate, but it does require some financial investment on their part, which they're not willing to do. Safe Drugs, on the other hand, as tiny and small as Safe Drugs is working on it with some seriousness. So there's more to come with that, but yeah, they're trying to get Rite Aid to kind of cough that up. Yeah. So also we talked about the deer. The deer infestation, which people think, right? But yeah, quick. They did discuss the fact that not many people know, but deer ticks make contact with humans because of mice and their close vicinity with human habitations, not so much the deer. So they're discussing these things called tick tubes, which is, long story short, a way to spread a chemical on the mice so that the deer ticks do not stick to the mice. Right? So they're...
Because the mice are dead? Or?
No, it's because the mice then have this sheen on them, and the ticks will not go anywhere near it. And it lasts on the mice for a long, long time. So they're trying to get the word out about those, but they haven't quite decided exactly how to do that. But the idea that it's the deer that are making people sick is something that they're trying to,
Stop blaming the deer.
Stop blaming
That's
the
the
deer.
message.
I mean, blame them for the tulips, but there's nothing we can do. But mice are the problem. So we're gonna talk more about the mice in months to come. And of course, we always discuss delayed opening times, always. And there's a whole lot of research behind it, as we all know. Not much we can do to make it any later than we already have it. And as we talked about in the Teen Pep thing, like kids are still required in many instances to get there earlier than that delayed time. So I don't know, it's going to be the same type of battle that we face with the time change, right? To get that changed so that we don't have the antiquated agricultural time change. It just doesn't seem like there's anything much we can do, but we continue to talk about it. And then the last item, I think, is community outreach for the street fair, and there's something called the JONJ Health Fair that's going to be a part of that. So it's the Jamaican, oh gosh, now I forgot what it was. I think it's Jamaican Outreach New Jersey Health Fair. So they're offering to partner up with the Board of Health and provide the community with some basic health screening at the street fair.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that's really great. And I made a point of asking them to please involve the Pride Center or other places like IPG that would be able to offer some LGBT-friendly health screening, because there is, yeah, there's quite a lot of emotional stuff involved in seeking out health care as a person from the LGBT plus community.
And as a kid in particular, I imagine.
Especially, yeah. I mean, I know as a parent, it was quite a lot of research I had to do, and many mistakes were made along the way trying to get the right type of health care. So anyway, that's about it.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Sure.
Mr. Roslevich, you have anything for us from the green team?
I have to catch up on the green team.
Ouch. Okay. Do it later.
I'll try to have it for the next meeting.
Don't breathe over here much. Mark, I'm assuming same goes for you?
Same.
And New Jersey School Board's Delegate Assembly, that's on the 18th, but I've been checking their website. There's nothing up for resolution, so I don't know what the heck it is we're going to be doing. So no big announcements that Sweeney's going to be there, so I don't know. I may, to be honest with all of you, I may call them between now and the 18th, and if there really are no resolutions, I'm probably not going to go, because it's a big trek and a big chunk out of my day if we're not doing anything productive. So
Why is that the case, do you think?
if districts aren't submitting resolutions, or if they submit resolutions and the resolution subcommittee doesn't move any of them forward, then there's no resolutions, and there's nothing to vote on.
If you do go, it might be nice to find out. I don't know if there's any way you could get information about that, but I would love to know why people are not submitting things, or why the subcommittee might not be accepting them. Good night, Avery.
There are 600 plus districts in the state, and less than 150 show up to this meeting.
Wow.
So it's not,
That's unfortunate.
it's not terribly well attended or functional.
You can't have you submit something for every single meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I know, as much as we try.
We do.
So I don't have anything there, and
The spring meeting is on Wednesday.
okay.
I don't know any information about programming. They don't have anything on the website about it other than it being the spring meeting, and I hope to attend.
You do?
I do. I think I would be better by then.
Have fun. Okay, so that brings us to my report, and if I can borrow your mic, I may actually get off my butt and go walk over there. Wait, the big button? Not that one. Not that one. That's going to turn it off. Okay, and I can steal your mic? It is? All right. I don't usually get up and walk around. I feel kind of weird doing this, but here I go. So I don't want to take too much time because now it's 9:30 at night. Hi, I know, right? I'm up and moving around. But then John doesn't have to go between me over there and the thing over here and that. No, see, and then I'll just stand behind a pole anyway, so John can't see me. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time. Some of you guys have seen some of this information, but I wanted to condense it all into one presentation to really give the community a sense of what it is that the district is up against this year. And we've definitely, at the board table, been talking about it over the last couple of years. You know, something that's hard to kind of send home a Honeywell about, like, hey, we're about to hit a financial cliff, everybody. You know, it's something that's hard to communicate. But at the board table, we've certainly been trying to communicate this over the last couple of years, that, you know, we knew we were coming to this point where it was not going to be feasible or even possible to continue to tax our residents. It was unlikely we were going to get more money from the state, and we were going to have needs that continue to increase. So what I put together in this slideshow is information from two sources, both from the Education Law Center, and I'll have Dr. Taylor put this up on the new fancy-fangled website. And I do, you know, you'll notice underneath the little chart there that I do have links to where the data comes from. It comes from the Education Law Center's school funding database. They've done an unbelievable job of documenting for the last 10 years all of the vacillations in state funding that have gone on since just prior to the Christie administration and since the Christie administration. So what this particular chart represents is our increased enrollment, and that's an important piece to pay attention to in terms of the budget situation that we find ourselves in. 10 years ago, we had a little under 1,500 students. Now, or late last year, we had a little over 1,600 students. Now we have about 1,640. So we're seeing that slow creep up. We're not at the point where it's panic mode and we need to start looking at additional facilities, but it is at the point where we're serving more students. And I also wanted to point out the weighted enrollment. I think that's something really important that the Education Law Center shows in this chart. And underneath, you know, I'm not going to stand here and read it to you, but it explains what weighted enrollment is. And basically, weighted enrollment means that for a district like ours that has about a 40% free and reduced lunch rate, there's an additional weight that's added on to each student in the what's called the School Funding Reform Act, that's added to each student that's considered at risk. So our students who are free and reduced lunch are considered at risk. So that weighted enrollment shows that at-risk population, and it's an acknowledgement that at least our state has made on a legislative level that it takes more resources to serve students who are at risk. Unfortunately, the state is not then funding that recognition that they have that those students are more expensive to educate. So we, as of 2008, 2009, our weighted enrollment was a little under 1,800, and now 2018, 2019, over 2,000. So that gives you a real picture of the difference in the population that we're serving over the last decade. And then this is just the more concrete numbers. That 7% increase from 2008, 2009 to 2018, 2019. And I believe now we're hovering closer to the 40% mark, which has enabled Jen Knapp, bless her, she's been really diligent about completing the paperwork every year to try to get us to be an entire Title I district, which means that those Title I funds that we receive can be allocated more across the board, not just targeted towards certain students. And clearly we will make sure that those initiatives are still geared towards those students, but it helps us broaden our reach a little bit. And this is the real doozy that's really kind of the heart of the matter, which shows the last 10 years of state funding, both the required state aid and the actual state aid. So on the most basic level, you can see that in 2009, we should have gotten a little under $5 million from the state. And in 2019, we should have gotten close to $6 million from the state. Instead, we got a little under $4 million from the state. And that 2019 number of what we actually got from the state is less than what we got from the state in 2009, which is just kind of staggering. So you put those two things together, you put together less funding than we got 10 years ago, and the increased at-risk population that we're serving, and you get the budget squeeze that we're in, because our students have more needs, and there's more of them, and we have less money.
And there's inflation.
Right, exactly. Exactly. You also have the 10 years worth of inflation to
Mark,
go
your
along with that.
microphone.
Darcy, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
So
Go ahead.
I see on the required state aid line,
Yep.
2013 to present, there's a lot of fluctuation. 5.7 million.
In the required?
On the required side. 5.7, 4.8, 5.4, 6.5, 7.3 last year, and then down a little.
And I think
$1,000,006. What is
that's
that?
the S2 legislation. I think it's the changes in the legislation that the legislature adopted late last year, I think. So it changed the amount of money that was allocated to districts. So, yes, it would have been less than we would have gotten, but it still would have been a hell of a lot more than we got,
So when the S2 changed with the new administration, that allows the new administration to say that they have increased the state aid.
Correct. But they moved it around.
But no one is really increasing the state aid in practical terms.
And there's many districts around the state that lost tremendous amount of aid, and now some of those districts are banding together, and they've been rallying at the State House, and yeah, it's a mess. It's an absolute hot mess.
So this is basically a really weak talking point.
Yes, it's along the lines of Christie's 2% cap talking point,
Yeah.
right? Everybody was like, 2% cap, 2% cap. You can't raise taxes more than 2% cap. And then it was a couple years later that I was like, oh, but then there's banked capped, and then there's waivers for this, that, and the other. And what Christie really did was just shift the burden away from the state and onto local taxpayers.
But now,
with a really solid talking point of where holding budgets do a 2% cap.
But this is kind of just, pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Kind
of magic trick where it's like, oh, it's all back.
Overall, there's more money, and some districts got more money, and we're getting slightly more money, but we're not getting nearly what we're owed, and we're still underwater from 10 years ago.
But the talking point, I think, is important to call it out for what it is.
And that's why I feel the need to do this.
Beautiful.
To make it very
Thank you.
clear to show that talking point doesn't hold water, and that's why we went and met with Senator Deignan. So yes, the talking point, and we got I got an email from one of our state legislators saying, we're there fighting for you in Trenton, we're getting you more money, and well, no, you're not.
Yeah, that's very important, I think, because for voters, that's what they see. This is critically important information.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, we can't. We can sit here and say there's no money, but we need to demonstrate it to folks. Like, we're not just saying there's no money. There's really no money. Like, we're constantly, every year, being asked to do more with less for kids with greater needs. So it's a diabolical combination. So I put together some of the biggest struggles that we face. One, obviously, is the health benefits cost. We talk about this every year. This isn't a great big surprise, but it was kind of helpful for me to see it laid out in actual numbers, to see the actual number increases and the percentage increases, to see exactly what we're talking about. And, and this impacts our staff as well. Their contributions are increasing as well. So their take-home pay is decreased. This is a bad slide for everybody. I could also, I probably could have gone to a couple of teachers and been like, okay, let's look at what your contributions how they've increased over the last few years, because, we may be paying them more, but they're taking home less. So this is not like, oh, well, those teachers now, they're getting these, they're paying a lot out of pocket for them, and it's really impacting their take-home pay. So this is just distressing on a number of levels. And this information came from Linda. So where the information came from Linda, I just indicated that the source is our school business administrator. And then this one is the special education costs. Again, this is something that we talk about all the time, but I thought it was important to just put the raw numbers out there and the percentage increases, just to really get a sense of what it is. And something I want to make just abundantly clear, because we do talk about this all the time, and the intention of this is not to put a target on any students or to separate out any students or to say we want to somehow get out from underneath providing these services. That's absolutely not what it's about. But we do have to take a very realistic look of what it means to say that a district is held to a 2% cap, yet our total special education costs in a year go up almost 30%. How do you sustain that? How do you sustain that? So that's one of the things that I tried to speak to Senator Deignan about, was any ways that the legislature can help us here. And Mark, I love having Mark's historical knowledge here of having seen how much more money we got back from the state years ago versus what we get now. And that's why part of my title for this presentation is it being about the disinvestment in public education. This is absolutely how it's happening, and it's happening in these teeny tiny little places here, there, and everywhere, where you may not even see the bill that impacts it, or you might not see the tweak to the funding formula that impacts it, but all those things are accumulating to put districts like ours in this squeeze, in this pinch where we're fighting each other for these resources. Special ed parents feel like they're fighting parents from, that's not the way it should be. We want to be able to serve all of our students, and we want to be able to serve them all well. But we're getting to the point where we can't do that. So as much as we would want to keep every program that we have and offer more, there simply aren't the funds. They're just not there. And then I wanted to give an explanation, because we talk about this sometimes, about extraordinary aid and what we should be getting back from the state, but what we actually are getting back from the state. And this is where part of what I talked to Senator Deignan about was this phenomenon that we've talked about multiple times at the board table as well, of these unilateral placements. Part of why these unilateral placements are so diabolical in terms of our budget is not only when they happen, which is typically at the very beginning of the school year. We've all sat at this table, we've figured out our budget, we've decided where we want all our money to go, and then in September we get hit with 2 or 3 unilateral placements and accompanying lawsuits. And then all of a sudden we have to figure out where another couple $100,000 is going to come from to serve those placements. Now, when we have those extraordinary needs of students going out of district, we're supposed to be getting a certain percentage of that back from the state. And this explains what that is. But the really particularly bad part for us is the threshold is higher if it's a private placement. And I think every single one of these unilateral placements has been to a private placement. So anything up to $60,000 is the district responsibility. So we get anything up to $60,000, we get 0 help from the state. 0. That threshold is lower for public placements. So if it's our student, we can look for and hopefully work with the parents to look for a public placement that's going to be less costly. And if it is more costly, where we can get more reimbursement from the state. With these unilateral placements, we typically we have no control over that. The student's already there. It's a private placement. We're going to pay the whole thing. So there's a formula for how much then we're supposed to get back from the state over that $45,000 or over that $60,000, but we're not even getting that. We're getting a fraction of that. So that's what these numbers are. The top one is how much we've applied for each year. The bottom one is how much we've received, and then the last one is just showing the percentage that we've received. So in 2017, 2018, we applied for $587,264. We got $295,481. That's 50% of what we were owed. And you can see almost every year without fail, the percentage goes down. So 5 years ago, we were getting back 65% of what we were owed. Now we're down to getting half of what we're owed. So we can, every year, I'm like, and now Linda, I'll shut up. Like, I've proved it to myself. Every year I'm like, come on, we can say we're going to get a little bit more. It's not. It's going down. The number is going down. So Linda is rightly very cautious every year, estimating how much money we can put into the budget for extraordinary aid, because we don't get those numbers till, when do we get them? We get them at some like weird point that's not helpful in our budget. So it's hard to plan for them. We don't know how much we're going to be getting. And this year, the state made another one of those great announcements. They're going to put in more money into extraordinary aid. And then I called to find out how much it was. I think it's like $5 million for the entire state. It's like,
that's how much that is?
What? That's not helpful.
Like, well, it's more. No, they could say more.
Exactly, but then, right, I got sucked into the talking point, $5 million for the entire state. Womp womp. So this little explanation and the explanation in the slide earlier, you see I'll have there's a little Seymour here at the bottom. Those explanations actually come from the New Jersey School Boards Association. They actually have a very helpful little primer on their website for some of these school funding things. Because I have to say, as much time as I spend trying to understand it,
there's still pieces of the School Funding Reform Act that I don't think I will ever in my lifetime understand. I try really hard, but it's really complicated. But they do have a very good explainer on there, so that's helpful.
Darcy,
and then I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so sorry, I thought there was an pause.
Go ahead.
Did you send that presentation to us? Do we have this somewhere?
I did not, but I will.
Okay,
I
great.
will after this, and I'll make sure
I'd like to check
Scott
the
puts it up on the
links.
website. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I just kind of had to put this one on here. This one's not terribly dramatic in terms of the increases, although, you can certainly see that from 2013-14 to 2019-20, we're paying more. There's been a lot of up and down over the last few years. The jump that we saw this year, we've talked about this a couple of times this year. We got a little cheer. Yay, we got an extra $180,000 from the state. Wow, that's going to help. And then it was like maybe a week later that we got the news, oh, but you're going to pay another $50,000 in charter school expenses. So whoop, there we dropped right down to $130-something thousand from the state. And then we found out we were getting less in pre-K aid. Again, talking point, more pre-K aid for the state. Highland Park, less pre-K aid. How those numbers shook out, never understand that. But at that point, we were down to like $100,000 increase from the state. So I just can't ever help but point out, you put that $400,000 back in our budget, all these things that we're talking about are moot. French, moot. Well, French is not really moot because, but then maybe we could afford to do 3 programs, but that would still probably be tricky. Home ec, we don't have to worry about it. Talking about potentially we don't have to worry about any of it. It solves our budget problems right there. And the recommendation that I made to Senator Deignan was actually based on something that's in the charter school law, and it's why we saw this big jump this year. We didn't actually see more students going to charter schools. It was just that a vast majority of the students from our district who go to charter schools leave private schools to go to the charter school. They don't leave our public schools, they leave private schools. So the first year that a student leaves a private school and goes to a charter school, the state picks up that tuition. So what I'm asking the senator to look into is if we have these unilateral placements and students are leaving a private school and going straight into an out-of-district placement, the state should similarly pick up those costs, at least for the first year. That, in the last few years, if we hadn't had to spend those $200,000-$300,000 on unilateral...
You got
Can
it.
someone else
You
say
got
it for
this.
me? Someone else say it.
Unilateral.
Thank you. Placements. That would have helped our budget tremendously every year because we would have that additional money to roll over potentially into the next year. Everything wouldn't have to be such a squeeze. And his ears actually perked up at that recommendation, so that was kind of exciting. So I thought it was important to include this also for that reason. This wasn't an increase in the number of students. This was just last year the state picked up 2 of those students. This year the state's not picking up those students. Now we are, so now we're at $400,000. And I'd really like that $400,000 back. So that's it. If anybody has any questions or whatever, I will go back to my seat.
That was a fantastic
That was
presentation.
amazing.
I'd like
Amazing.
to put it on the front page of the website. I'll make it a news item so the community can download it.
I thought you were going to say
But,
front page of the New York
compelling.
Times. But
It should be at the front
That's
page.
correct.
it should be. But it's a lot more information than I've ever gotten.
I stole your mic. I'm just really impressed. That was good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, important.
Does anybody, I know we want to get out of here, but does anybody have any questions? Or?
There was one slide, it was healthcare costs that I wanted to ask about.
Okay. Whoop. Scott just made it go away, though.
I'll put it back up.
It's there somewhere. I know it's late. I'm not seeing things yet. But
I was actually on my way to uploading it to the website. That's how
cool.
excited I got. Hold
well,
on.
I could just ask without having it posted up there. I know that that's a really big sticking point, and I had heard in conversations around town the idea that if teachers had a different type of healthcare plan, that it would be cheaper, and so it would be less money for us to put in and potentially less money for them to put in. But the idea was to give them a 401k. So pretty much the idea that I've heard floated around national politics of a savings account for your health care. So it's not really solving any problems. It's not providing, the human need for health services.
The only one that I've heard talked about in the state is the one that Mark has referred to, which is Sweeney's plan of the difference in the the cost between the state health benefits plan and the school employees health benefits plan. And there is a radical difference between the cost of the two plans, but I don't know what the difference is in the coverage. So that's something that we would have to explore. And I know that Sweeney's plan is not being met with much fanfare anywhere. I don't think anybody's terribly, I don't know. I don't know the details yet. So I need to look into it further.
Sure.
The claims in the news are that the state health benefits plan and the school employees benefits plan have comparable levels of health benefits, but the school employees health benefit plan is 40 or 50%, no, 30 to 40% higher in cost. So that we're paying $36,000 for the family coverage on average, and the state health benefits plan to other employees, not school employees, is for that same plan is $24,000. So it's a third less. There may be differences, I don't know. And we have contractual obligations. So we have to cover our employees at a certain level. But Sweeney has explored combining the plans, getting something, I guess, that would be somewhere in the middle. That would save us, I mean, our costs are over $6 million. That would cost us, that would save us a fortune. But I'm not so hopeful that that's happening anytime soon.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful for Sweeney's suggestion, I guess. But is there any, yes, I was being sarcastic. But is there any idea of how much he advocates for a single payer plan on the national level?
I don't think he's heard those words before, so I doubt that that's on his mind. I think his mind, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I guess I was, but I'm not now. He's trying to solve a problem, and I give him credit for trying to solve that problem, because we do have a problem. I think the problem is caused by the school employees' retirees being in the school employees' health benefits plan, which raises the price significantly, the coverage costs significantly. I don't know what his solution is. I don't know, what his real solution is, and I don't know what the numbers on. I only know what I've read. And I think it's pretty accurate. The numbers are pretty accurate from what I can see. But if he can put something together, pass legislature, get it signed, and we would even save 10%, 15% even is out of the question, but 10%, we would literally say, 10% is $600,000, and our teachers would save that same 10% in their contributions. So there's a hope that could happen. But I think the teachers, as they should be, are very wary that benefits will be taken away.
Sure.
But I don't think he's thinking single payer. He's thinking of trying to solve a problem. And it's a real problem.
Yeah, I appreciate that there's
ability
to
even think about a single payer.
I just know that reading as much as I do about this topic, that the majority of Americans across party lines, independents as well, are in favor of a single payer plan. Yet when it comes to the real conversation about these things on the local level, it seems to be like an impossible thing to discuss, and we can't expect our senators to say those words. I mean, there's not a person that you can talk to that would disagree with you, because that takes so much money out of our system, and it really does cost more than a single payer system. So I don't know why, we are not pushing for our leaders to advocate for that. I think we should. I don't know what more we can do, but I don't know. It's very difficult, but it's
I think we have a more pressing, urgent, short-term need.
Oh, sure.
Which is to see if we can. And, we solved some of this here through negotiations, so that in some number of years in our contract with the different associations, the employees new employees won't get the most expensive coverage. and that'll save the district 10 years from now when, nobody remembers me. They'll say, thank good, no, truthfully. So they will say, wow, we're not paying the numbers we paid because new people didn't go on the most expensive plan. But it's only chipping away at the problem.
Right.
And anyway, it's hard to discuss the national issues. We have really
I can barely
serious,
wrap my brain around the School Funding Reform Act, so.
It's terrible,
I just had to get on my soapbox about that
I
issue
understand.
because that was such a huge amount of money.
It is
And it's
massive amount of money.
It's an absolute sin that
And
the
if someone else can
teachers-
figure that out, I will thank them
Absolutely.
profusely, but it is so far above my pay grade.
1 out of every $6 in our school budget goes for medical insurance for our employees. It's just extraordinarily. And coverage on average in the state of private employers, which I was, is $12,000 a year average. That's 1/3 the amount we're paying. They're not, the coverages aren't as good. I mean, clearly, but it's still the pool of people maybe.
Right, and
better.
employees are paying higher
amounts here.
Higher
So it's not
percentage.
so simple, but still, something has to break, something has to give, and I mean that's the point of Darcy's great presentation,
Yeah.
is that we are in such trouble. They are not helping us, and the medical is just one of. If any one of these things were made good, we would not have all of the problems we're having.
Well, that's why I raise that issue of advocating on the national level, because I feel like this is absolutely heading towards a disastrous situation. And we're talking about, what's the solution? Kicking retirees off of health care? Like, that's not a solution.
Excuse me.
No, I mean, so don't get sick. Just don't age, don't get sick.
Pretty healthy guys, Mark.
I mean, it's an absolute sin.
Well, and unfortunately, the net result for our budget next year,
Is
bring
worse.
it back to where we are, is, it's
be
going to
worse.
be even harder next year.
It's going to be worse.
So it's a year-by-year struggle, and we're barely eking our way out of this one, and Scott still has to figure out where to find 6 figures by Monday. I don't envy him that task, and I don't envy us on Thursday to figure out where that's going to be, but it's so, there you go. And on that cheery note, does anybody have anything for old business they would like to bring up? No? Or new business?
So just one thing, I just got
Yes,
an
ma'am.
email that there's an HP March Against Anti-Semitism tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Oh, where's this?
Beginning at the Doughboy statue and
Ending up here.
marching down the Raritan Avenue, over the bridge into New Brunswick to the Chabad House at Rutgers to join the 7 p.m. solidarity rally with the Poway Jewish community in San Diego.
Excellent.
Oh, that's great. And then there was something that Councilman Fine messaged you about. Was that something?
Yeah, it's a service on behalf of his congregation that he'd like to hold on the lawn of the high school. So he's going to fill out facility request forms. It's open to the public. It's sorry, Ruth, you might be able to clarify. It's referred to as is it a Kabbalat Shabbat service? Or
That's a Friday night service.
Yeah, it's a regular Shabbat service. So he'd like to hold it on the lawn of the high school as a way to show strength and
That's nice.
project an air of confidence, about
Very
Highland
nice.
Park.
In conflict, I'm sorry, with what Ruth just said. Apparently, there's a college fair for high school students at the same time tomorrow. It's at the high school cafeteria. There's a panel discussion from 6:30 to 7:15 about the college admission process.
Nice.
And it goes till 8:30. So more information is available from the guidance department. You can get them at extension 3006.
This is apparently the first time in many years we've done
Yes.
this. And I looked at the list of colleges. Many local colleges are attending, and it's wonderful. It's really
Yeah.
wonderful they're doing this.
Yeah, it's great. It's necessary because I know
necessary.
that as the mother of a senior, there's a lot to know.
Are you referring to Keisha Golding Cooper's fair?
That's what it is?
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
it
okay,
is.
good.
Yep.
It's it's coming up in about a week.
April 30th, isn't it? April 30th?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
No, I don't think it's so soon.
So maybe it's a different college fair?
Oh. Is it? I'll be there. I didn't realize it was coming up so fast
fail
on us.
in Scott's calendar? How's that possible?
So yeah, April 30th, tomorrow, 6:30 to 8:30.
And it's so important for
high
so
school
many reasons.
cafeteria.
Like I've spoken with a young woman recently who graduated from New Brunswick, and she was saying that it was at that fair that one of her teachers was like, "Well, who'd you go talk to?"
Oh.
And she was like, "Nobody. Like, what do you like?" And it was like a teacher like shoving her, like at a college's table that actually got her to go and apply.
Wonderful.
And, like so it can. Just having it can spark something in someone that might not have happened before. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Sometimes you can't lead the horse. You gotta, bring the water.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you both for mentioning those. Does anybody else have anything? Anyone else have anything else? No. Okay. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, we don't have any more
Sorry.
public, so there's no more public comment. Just to be clear, for anyone watching at home who can't see that, we have no one here. If you want to get out of your PJs and get here, you got. No, it's too late.
Don't even bother.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.